Hello, my name is Sophie Pitman and I'm a postdoctoral research fellow on the Refashioning the Renaissance project, and I'm the curator of this exhibition, Reconstructing Everyday Fashion, 1550 to 1650. So the two key questions of this exhibition are, what did everyday artisans such as butchers, bakers and street sellers wear to participate in fashion culture? And how can we access this kind of information when so few sources survive? So we open this exhibition, which is based on 5 years of our collaborative project research, by introducing you to 5 artisans. These have been selected among over 300 artisans that we've been studying in the archives. And we wanted to bring some of these people to life. So we introduce you to images of artisans and specific people that we have been studying about through post-mortem inventories. In these inventories, items of clothing that these artisans owned were recorded after death, and many of the items that we're given fairly interesting information about the textiles, the colors, where these clothes were stored in the house, and even some of the fabrics and trimmings that they were made of. So we wanted to reconstruct these wardrobes and identities and bring people to life. So in the exhibition, you can meet our 5 key artisans. You can study our database of over 30,000 clothing and textile items, and meet some of the people that really enrich our study of early modern everyday fashion. One artisan that I'd like to introduce you to today is Francesco Restori. He was a water seller in Florence, and he died in 1631 during a pandemic year. Here you can see a page of his inventory, which tells us all of the items that were in his house at his time of death, including a number of clothing objects that he and his family owned at this time. That leads us round to part 2, the centerpiece of our exhibition, which is this full reconstruction, an imaginative reconstruction of Francesco Restori's Mercado black stamped doublet. This has been made as a collaboration between the Refashioning the Renaissance project and the School of Historical Dress in London. And it is handmade with hand-spun, hand-woven, naturally dyed, hand-tailored fabrics. And it helps us really to visualize, to make material, one of these artisan outfits that shows just how effective, I think, some of the techniques that were being used, the cutting edge craftsmanship of the era, that made fashion available not just to the elites, but to those lower down the social spectrum, like Francesco the water seller. Around this doublet, we also have other kinds of materials that we help explain exactly how innovative this doublet was. So for example, we have an animation made by Marit Kalmakoki, who's a PhD student here at Aalto and a designer. And this animation shows how a doublet is constructed, the lots of different kinds of fabrics and layers within the garment. We also have a film made at the School of Historical Dress with Valeria Zanetti, a model who is our modern day version of Francesco the water seller. And this shows how the doublet is put on the body and worn in concert with other pieces. And here we have some of the tools that we use to make the doublet, these stamps that impress the pattern on the fabric, and some experiments that we did as a team to learn some of the techniques together. In this third section of the exhibition, we focus more broadly on innovation and imitation. So you've already seen in Francesco's doublet the kinds of imitation materials. They're wools and linens, not silks. It's stamped rather than woven with a pattern. But here we open up the topic of innovation and imitation to talk about all kinds of techniques that were being used by very innovative craftspeople who were using all kinds of new materials available during the Renaissance. So on this table, we look at things like imitation damask and pinked sleeves, and even some fake leopard fur. And we show you the real damask next to imitation, real silk velvet next to the macado of Francesco's doublet, to show you just the kinds of techniques that we've been experimenting with as a project. These are our reconstructions, alongside some pictures of actual artisans wearing these kinds of very innovative imitations. Here, following recipe books from the 16th and 17th centuries, you see some imitation pearls that we created in the dye kitchen here at Aalto, alongside real pearls. And this helps us to really challenge and question what we see when we look at a Renaissance portrait, to think about what does imitation, what does fakery really mean, and can we always trust what we're looking at in the sources that we use? It also shows us just how effective some of these techniques were. It's quite hard to tell the difference between a real piece of amber and the imitations that we made following a 16th century recipe book. Another key innovation in the early modern period was knitted stockings, and this table really highlights some of the incredible craftsmanship that goes into making knitted woolen and silk stockings. This was part of a large knitting project full of very skilled volunteer knitters from Finland. And here you can see some of the original silk stockings that still survive, patterns from the era that were reconstructed, and various colors dyed all with natural materials in these beautiful knitted fine fabrics that really fit to the leg and made it possible for people to wear stockings that weren't tailor-made for them but still gave that fashionable tight fit. This next section is all about color in the Renaissance. You might get the idea from surviving garments that the clothes from the era were quite dark and drab, but actually we know that you could create a whole bright spectrum of colors using natural dye stuffs. And so the Refashioning the Renaissance project has been doing all kinds of dye tests and experiments in collaboration with expert dyers to really show this entire rainbow spectrum available with the kinds of natural dye stuffs that were being traded in Europe in the period. Black, however, still remained the most fashionable color for many people, and new materials were making different technologies of black possible. So this side of the exhibition talks about old methods of making black by combining blue and red dye stuffs, cheaper black colors that weren't quite true deep black, but were still very effective and affordable for artisans, and the new material of logwood that gave such a deep, rich black tone. And the exhibition finishes over here with a section about taking care of one's clothing. We know just how much people valued the textiles and clothing items that they owned. They expected them to last sometimes their whole lifetime and somebody else's lifetime. So they took care of their clothes through careful laundering, perfuming, and other kinds of cleaning methods. So in this section, we show some of the experiments that we conducted as the refashioning team in doing some spot cleaning with materials found around the home, printed in cheap recipe books that were available to people among the artisan classes, using things like lemons and chanterelle mushrooms. And over on this side, we talk about scent and how important it was to keep one's clothing smelling fresh and clean, and the reconstruction of these scented linen pouches that were available to people in order to keep their clothing fresh, which was particularly important during pandemic times. So we hope you have a chance to come and visit the exhibition, which is open now and runs until the 29th of October this year. But if not, you can find out far more information on our website, refashioningtherenaissance.eu. Thank you very much.